This giant chunk of timber is going to be a floating shelf. It's really heavy. I'm going to show you how I make floating shelves, how I make them perfectly flat, and how I make them a lot lighter. People love floating shelves. They look good, they look clean, but the issue is often they're really fiddly to install, and if they're not done well, they will sag, which is useless. That is not what a shelf needs to do. So you can buy a floating shelf hardware. I've never met one of those that I liked. I've tried a few of them. I have a system that I use, which uses standard steel rod cut to size. You can get it from anywhere. It's not a fiddly system to install. It's fairly foolproof. You can do it on a plaster wall, on a brick wall, really anything you like. And it makes the shelf way lighter and, most importantly, dead flat and stays dead flat. Let's jump in. So, a couple of basic bits and pieces of housekeeping about making this floating shelf. You need to decide on the thickness of the steel rod that you will be using. I have done really large versions of this where I have used 16mm steel, but for this one, I'm going to be using 12mm, and I think that's totally fine for this shelf. Partly, it allows me to make the shelf slightly thinner. A 16mm cavity in the center means that everything gets sized up, and this shelf is not particularly deep. It is also supported on 3 sides by tile, which really takes a lot of stress out of it. However, 12mm is what I've ended up with. You need to make sure your cavity is slightly larger than that 12mm piece of steel rod so that it's not jammed in there. Inevitably, you need a little bit of wiggle, so I've left my cavity at about 13mm. The way that we create the cavity is by using spacer blocks. This piece of wood that we had, that large piece of F17, was split through the center. We cut a front strip off before we even split it apart. So this will be our face. This is the part of the shelf that will be facing out towards the customer. This is the top skin of the shelf. This is the bottom skin of the shelf. And we have a whole bunch of these spaces, which we will essentially use to build this hollow shelf. The location that you place these spaces matters. In a perfect world, you would know the exact location of every stud. Now, even if you did have that full stud map of the wall, I still prefer building a hollow shelf than just trying to drill a deep hole into the back of the shelf. You can drill a hole in. I found it to be more difficult in terms of alignment, and this cavity just gives you a lot more play and makes it easier to install. I know that the studs are probably going to be about 450mm centers because this is a newish house and most timber stud walls are built that way. And so, given that I know my shelf is coming between 2 walls, I can map out roughly where those studs are going to be. Now, this won't be exact, and it doesn't need to be. This particular client is about an hour and a half away from me, so I don't have the opportunity to go and measure the exact studs, or it would take me half a day to do so. And this gives me the flexibility to just make it work with whatever exists on site. So I can mark 450mm the whole way along this shelf and do it from both ends. And that gives me the 2 most likely locations that every stud will be at. And what that means is all I need to do is to place my spacers in between those locations. It doesn't matter if they're exactly equal, although the part of me that likes order means I will put them equally. You need a spacer block at each end, you need a cover strip on the front, and you need to glue that together in a way that makes sense to you. Okay, so this is going to be our drilling jig for the wall. We've got a big chunk of hardwood. This is some cypress. It just means that the drill bit will have a nice clean piece of timber to rest in, and the timber is hard enough to resist the bending or the enlarging of that hole. And it's attached to a thin piece of plywood, and that gives us a larger surface to hold against the wall and reference. Worst case scenario, you can double-sided tape, or you can stick this to the wall if you need to, or if you have someone who can help you, they can hold it to the wall. So this jig will be on the wall vertically. We want our hole to be at a slight angle to make sure that our metal rods are going into the wall at a slight angle. Now, that angle is something that you have to gauge for yourself. To give you some idea, if a shelf is 230, 240 millimeters deep, and you put 1 degree of angle on it, that means the front lip of the shelf will be approximately 4 millimeters higher than the back. The reason we're making it higher is because the weight of the shelf will bend that steel down slightly. So maybe we can assume there'll be 1 millimeter of deflection from the weight of the shelf itself. Maybe there'll be an additional millimeter of deflection from the weight of the stuff you put on the shelf. And that is kind of what we're trying to allow for. So in that instance, 1 degree might be too much. If you find that those rods are still a little bit too sloped upwards, you can use a mallet to just tap them down when they're in the wall. The steel will bend slightly, and you can just smash it a number of times and it will bend downwards. I'm going to make my jig slightly less than 1 degree. I'm going to make it about half a degree, which will mean that I have about 2 millimeters higher at the front of the shelf than the back. I think with the weight of the shelf, that will deflect down perfectly. And the other thing that's a bit different with my shelf than some of the others that I've done at other times is the tile lip prevents this shelf sagging any further down. This tile lip also means that my hole needs to be pretty close to the bottom of this jig, because my shelf will be resting on that tile lip. If you were mounting a shelf on a flat wall with nothing above or below it, I would place your drilling hole just in the center of this somehow. But mine needs to be quite close to the bottom. I'm actually going to be drilling it from the back side to make sure that the hole is in exactly the right location. And the way that I'm going to get that angle, rather than angling the base of the drill press, and most drill presses do have a way of setting an angle, I find it more accurate to just calculate the length of the jig and raise it with a shim the amount that you need to achieve that angle. It means that you're only getting that angle in one direction. You don't have to worry about how this jig sits on the drill press, whether the axis of angle is the same as the axis of rotation of the drill press table. So I can just use these little 3mm shims under one end of my jig. I can drill through the back, and that will get me exactly that half a degree-ish deflection, which will give me a perfectly flat shelf. Let's have a chat about using this jig. First thing I need to do is decide the height of the shelf. Now, this is not the wall that this shelf is being installed, this is just in my workshop. But when I'm doing this kind of work, I always use masking tape and I never mark the wall directly. It means that I can put more marks on the wall and feel less anxious about it. And if I need to mark multiple times, etc., I'm not damaging the plaster in any way. So let's say that I've marked that I want this sitting at whatever this is, 1600 high. I can put the tape on there as flat as possible, and I will use a level to make sure that I've got a line that is truly level. And then along that tape, I can mark the stud locations. The location of your horizontal line, you need to decide, is that the top of the shelf, the midpoint, which is where the steel will go in, or the underside of the shelf. So be aware of that when you're adding this line to the wall. You can use a laser, you can use a long level, whatever you need to do. I'm marking the center point. So not the top or the bottom of the shelf, but where that metal rod is going to enter the wall. And I'm going to pretend that I have a stud location here and a stud location here. What this jig will do is allow me to drill this hole at about 1/2 degree angle upwards. But in order for that angle to be correct, we need to make sure that this jig is dead straight. So this line is the center of this hole, and to make this work for us, we need to make sure that we can see where the center of that hole is on the edges so that we can align it. Currently, I don't have those lines drawn out there, so I'm going to get a square, draw those lines, extend them around the front, and then I can line those guidelines up with my guideline on the wall. So we can use those little guidelines to align this jig so that it's not skewed horizontally, but we also need to make sure that we have the right position. I have a little guideline underneath, so we need our stud location to be drawn down so that I can see it underneath the jig. And the best way to do that is with some tape. Okay, I added some tape onto the back of my plywood, and I added some tape at the top too, and I'm going to use double-sided tape to stick them together. Adding the masking tape obviously protects the wall because double-sided tape could tear the paint off. It also gives you a slightly better substrate for the double-sided tape to stick to. So, jig is attached to the wall. I can get my drill and I can drill straight through that hole. The hole will guide the drill bit. It'll stay at that 1/2 degree up. I go as far as I can, and then I can remove the jig and continue to drill into the stud if I need to. I was just pretending. I'm not going to drill a hole in that wall, but that's the process. If you have a whole lot of these, it's very important that that line is straight, and a laser is the best way to do that. If you don't have a laser, you can get a really long straight edge that's longer than your level, sit your level on it and level the entire straight edge. You can even stick, using this same method, a long straight edge to the wall that acts as a lower guide for this jig. So all you're doing is sliding the jig along the straight edge if you have 6 or 8 of these holes to put in. In my case, I can use my tile layer as the lower straight edge in my shelf application for this particular shelf, but usually you don't have that. And giving yourself a physical thing to slide the jig along means that every single hole is at the right height and the right angle. In terms of fixing this to the wall, usually I find that the tiny amount of variation between those steel rods means that these shelves go in with a fair bit of friction. You usually have to mallet them in, and that means they feel really firm. And usually a bead of silicone behind the timber, between the timber and the wall, is enough to essentially just glue that shelf to the wall. If you felt like you needed to fasten it physically with more than adhesive, you could perhaps drill a hole through the base of the shelf into that steel rod or something, and you could fix it that way. Or you could put some polyurethane glue or epoxy into the cavities so that the steel rod would bond with that glue as well as the shelf gluing itself to the wall. Now I've got to try and take this thing off. Easy. The bond of the masking tape broke, and it didn't destroy my jig, and it didn't destroy the wall. Exactly what we wanted. So, bit of messing around. This is all glued together. Any excess that was hanging out, I cut off, given it a sand, and now we have our hollow shelf. I'll give you a little tour. You can see that cavity at the back, and you can see those spacer blocks. Like I mentioned earlier, those spacer blocks are positioned, so hopefully they don't interfere with any studs. However, if I happen to interfere with one of them, it's okay. I have enough steel going into the wall that it'll be okay. That front lip there is the cover strip that I cut off the piece originally and has been glued back on the front. And you can't see, but it has been joined back onto the top and the bottom plate. You can see it much more clearly from the end. So from the end here, you can see the top piece, the bottom piece, the front section and the spacer. Now, I don't love the look of that timber sandwich there. I'm a bit of a purist, but I feel like it makes it obvious that it is a constructed piece. If it's done really neatly, it doesn't really matter. And if the ends are visible, maybe that'll be fine. But there is a way to avoid it looking like that. You can slice off some end grain at the start before you've cut the whole piece up, and you can actually re-glue that onto the end. Now, the way that you do that so that you can't see it is you make your veneer as thin as the chamfer that you're going to use. And what that means is that the top of the chamfer, where the angle part meets the main board, is where the join is. And generally, you can hide that join in that line that's created where the chamfer starts. So this piece is about 3mm thick, which would mean I'd need to use roughly a 3mm chamfer. Generally, I would do it a bit thinner. This particular shelf is going to be put into an alcove, which means there's wall on both sides and none of this is visible. So I didn't need to worry about the way this looked so much. So these are my steel pins. They're about, from memory, 260mm long. That accounts for the distance they need to go into the shelf, the thickness of the plaster, and the distance they need to go into the stud. I would not drill through the stud. You need to make sure that these stop so that when you're putting the shelf on, they can't get forced through the hole and then they wouldn't be doing you any good. I've chamfered the ends so that they go into the hole in the stud easily, and they also go into the back of my shelf easily. This is less than $5 worth of steel, so obviously this solution is significantly cheaper than off-the-shelf floating shelf brackets. It's also stronger, it's more accurate. I know the timber component is a lot more work, but you get a much nicer, more stable shelf, and it is not going to sag on you. Let me know down below if there's a way that you prefer to do it, or if you have any questions about this process. I'm happy to try and answer that for you. There'll be some links down below to a couple of the products I've used, like the machines, etc. I hope you've enjoyed this video and got something out of it. Let me know if you try this. Like I said, I've tried a number of ways and this is what works for me. And until then, keep making stuff. I'll see you next week.